And I told my kids this a long time ago, the older you get, the smarter I become. Boom. Got my son right now. He wants a bank account. I said, great, read this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad for Teens. He's 12. Because if you learn sales, you'll never be unemployed.
When I started walking with God, there was a passion that drove me at first, but eventually it's almost like getting married. Eventually that passion is like more commitment.
By the way, the Bible can be used just like the internet for one or two ways. You can find things in there to confirm your faith or to deny it. You can find excuses or you can find reasons by looking in the Bible. When we put ourselves in a position where you look good, you feel good. You feel good, you do good. And Deion Sanders says, if you do good, it pays good.
That's good.
And that's all good.
All right, welcome to the podcast today. I am in a remote location with a very special guest. We have here Matt Sapaula. He is on the senior board council of PHP. You can find him on social media as the Money Smart Guy, on YouTube also as the 7-Figure Squad, and he's out with a new book, Faith Made Millionaire. So thanks for your time today, Matt.
Absolutely, Jeff. Thanks for coming out.
So Faith Made Millionaire, what motivated this book?
You know, you've heard of self-made, right?
Yeah.
You may have even heard of team-made, but
No.
You know Team Made Millionaire?
No.
You never heard of Team Made Millionaire?
I have not.
Some people say, I'm out because of my team, man. I made my millions because of my team, my company, my guys. And so people either take personal credit for it or they give credit for their team. For me, I give my credit to my faith, because when I plugged into my faith, it made everything else unfold. And so when I'm going through a lot of difficult challenges in my life, which I wrote in the book, my personal challenges, my financial challenges, my family challenges, my child challenges, my divorce, my bankruptcy, everything like that, had it not been for faith, my man, had not been for faith and following that faith step every step of the way and realizing that there was hope at the end of this whole journey, I don't know where I'd be today. And I think because of that, it led me to a lot of different questions that I asked myself, to ask externally, to ask internally, externally, to get myself in situations where opportunities would show up. Sure. And so when people read the book, they might connect with my story. They might connect with the questions I ask. They might connect with the strategies I present. They might connect with my vision of how I'm living my life. So that's why Faith Made Millionaire.
That's awesome. I got maybe 80 pages in.
Really? Cool.
And I think it's a pretty pivotal book. At least the start of it was, I just been resonating with all of it because you're sharing stories of your kids. Actually, we'll go into that in a minute, but let me just ask, what is your faith?
By religion, we were talking about that earlier. Yeah. I'm a Christian, but I'm not a big fan of religion.
Sure.
I have a direct relationship with Jesus, and when I get that relationship right, everything else here, from a vertical standpoint, everything helps out from an earthly horizontal situation.
And if you want to hear more about that was an interesting story in your book, where that kind of began, right?
Yeah.
In the Marine Corps.
That's right. And we're going into Operation Restore Hope in Somalia, Africa. That's right.
Yeah, maybe we'll save that for if they dig into the book.
For sure.
So with your faith, like if you were going to speak back to yourself, younger Matt, and you were going to just kind of teach him some principles that you do today, that you learned in your faith, because you had a level of success that not a lot of people get to, right, in business. You've maintained a faith, right, and you maintained your family and through ups and downs.
Yeah.
But what in your faith, what were you doing like through all this growth? Because an entrepreneur, I know you got busy. I know you had to potentially sacrifice time with your family or figure out how to do that while you're hustling and growing, right. This company.
Right.
So what principles would you say got you through that?
I think what got me through it, or did I tell my 20-year-old version in terms of that? But what got me through that was just realizing that I made some bad decisions and now I got to pay for it. There's consequences to bad decisions. You think you know everything, but you really don't. Sure. You're smart, but you're not wise. There's people that have been there, done that. You should be asking them more questions than. I just turned 49 years old, right? So it was my birthday last Monday. And I remember when I first turned 21, right? And somebody said, man, I'm 30. I'm like, geez, I'll never get there. Right? And I blink, I'm 49. Right?
Sure.
And so I think you'll save a lot of grief and unnecessary stress by being wise enough to listen to people that have been there, done, ask them questions. Now, they may not be where you're at. Like you envision yourself to be, like for example, I've always envisioned, big things come out of my life. I don't know where that came from, but whatever I got involved, I wanted to be the guy that led. I wanted to be the guy that the scoring, the winning touchdown. I want to be the guy that brought home the bacon. Sure. So I always felt somehow, some way, there's something awesome in my life. I just didn't know how to get there. And so I would short circuit that by bad decisions in the meantime, bad personal decisions, bad financial decisions, bad relationship decisions because of my own selfishness and limited vision.
Sure. What are you doing, like, say, on a week-to-week basis? Like, what do you do this week that even nourishes your faith, I guess? Like, what, or just today or one day?
Well, I mean,
it look like?
it's Monday, so yesterday was recharge day.
Yeah,
so it's church, and I caught a vision yesterday because as much as our family is, because I have 5 kids too as well. Okay. 3 older kids, 27 and 20s that are 21, and then 12 and a 3-year-old.
Wow.
And a pastor was honoring some families in church yesterday. And I was thinking to myself, man, I really would love to have my kids back in Dallas. I would love to have all the kids down here because, they're older. They're 2 are in Chicago, one's in Denver, and the 2 younger ones are here in Dallas. And, I'm thinking to myself, what do I want in 2023? I really want to pitch my kids to come back around Dallas. And I'm going to give them a financial incentive because I want to go to church on Sundays with them. Because I think when kids get older, and I told my kids this a long time ago, the older you get, the smarter I become. So I think we've been tapping into each other's wisdom in relationship and, just texting back and forth more often than before.
Sure.
Lately.
Yeah.
And so I think the kids realize, what? As much as I may have wanted to get distance from my dad, I'm realizing that there's some wisdom with what I had to say when I was earlier in my life.
Wow. And so what I kind of hear too is you're saying, so is Sunday, like taking a Sabbath, is important to you?
100%.
Which God kind of designed for you to be with your family and be with believers, be like you called it a recharge day.
Yeah.
Or is that consistent for you? Is that how has it been challenged?
I would say 80-90% consistent. Yesterday was kind of challenging. My wife had to take a couple of appointments. I didn't like it, and I kind of verbalized it to her. But she's got her thing. Yeah. But with me, the other 2 boys, were there. So it's not 100% perfect all the time, but it's evolving, and I really do appreciate that Sabbath, recharge. We really get to connect because throughout the week it's unless the kids are coming by the office or I'm going by their practice or their school, we're kind of disjointed throughout the week, and I think Sunday should be reserved for Sabbath.
That's awesome. So doing a weekly thing, what does it look like? How do you treat the Bible, like in a day or in a week? Like,
well, it's constantly with me. The Bible. Bible. We just put it over there because we want to make sure we had a clean table here but the Bible's constantly on my desk. I'm using it constantly as a resource, as a reference, as a recharge. Sometimes in a moment of distraction, I'm finding myself back in the Word to get me back into a thought process. I grew up not thinking that the Bible was a useful tool, and. Anyway, make a long story short, somebody kicked me off into the book of Proverbs and Ecclesiastes and some wisdom that Jesus had mentioned in terms of the Sermon on the Mount, in terms of his relationship with money and possessions and his relationship with his disciples. But, the Bible to me is one big, great reference manual because, you talk about the values and principles of humankind. And you think just because in 2022 it's any different than it was during biblical times. It's the same human principle and value that was in biblical times. It is today. It's just different technology. You just, call things differently. But basically, the human interaction, greed, gluttony, deceit, divorce, war, all that stuff is in the Bible. All the things that we're dealing with today to unify or divide, it's all in the Bible. And people have dealt with it already for many generations. And why don't we go back to the reference manual? That's why I look at the Bible.
That's awesome. I love it. I followed you probably since 2020, right?
Very cool.
Patrick but David. Saw you.
Wow.
But really what stood out was when you did that series on YouTube, and it was the Proverbs one.
Wow.
It was like about Proverbs in business, right? Yeah. You were going to do that. I was like, this business guy is going to put content out on Proverbs, dude. So I appreciated that.
Boom.
I've always struggled with like consistency in my life. There's a passion, like when I started walking with God, there was a passion that drove me at first, but eventually it's almost like getting married. Eventually that passion is like more commitment.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I've struggled with that these last 21 years. So anyways, that was encouraging to me. And so I mimicked something from that because I had already heard of the Proverbs of the day, right? Because there's 31 Proverbs.
Yeah.
There's 31 days in the longest month, so do one a day. And so that was encouraging. I started probably 10 months ago, just getting up. And if I can catch it, I'm not 100%. And I like that you said that too. But when I can, I'm in it and I get it.
Oh, for sure. So
what is like a core verse or something that you kind of live by?
Yeah. For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper, not harm, plans to give you hope and a good future. That's it, man. It's just Jeremiah 29. And, even me just saying that, I get emotional about it, bro.
That's good.
It's like, for I know the plans I have for you. Because sometimes you don't even know the plans you have for yourself. Like day to day, like, oh, okay, I face this wall, I face this challenge, I face this pitfall. And sometimes as an entrepreneur, you face more of the negative than you do the positive. In order to get to that one positive, you got to go through the 9 negatives. And sometimes that's challenging. Sometimes that's difficult. Sometimes, you're a father of 5 kids. Have you ever experienced those days where you just can't win an argument?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I lost with my kids, and I lost with my wife, and I lost my business.
Yeah.
Damn, can I get a win today? Right? Yeah. Now I got to say, for I know the plans I have for you. Plans to prosper you, plans to give you hope and a good future, not to harm you. The pain and the failure and the suffering we go through is not to harm us, but it's to teach us. It's to guide us and put us in this situation. When we're going through some harm, when my wife and I were going through some pain, we ended up in a much better situation on the other end.
Sure.
Because my wife, we were going through that situation, and my wife went off. I went off into my office. The only thing I could do was like, no, how do I fix myself in this situation? Make more phone calls, run the business, because that makes me feel, being a provider again, makes me feel like a man. I need to provide, blah, blah, blah. What was my wife doing in the bathroom? She was on her knees praying. That's the way she felt, And so 30 minutes later, after she got done with the prayer, Patrick and David reached out and called me.
Interesting.
And their life changed. Yeah, that's it. And I had multiple offers at the time. Companies were offering me stock. Companies were offering me cash. Companies were offering me high contracts. Come over to our company. Patrick said, I don't have for none of that. Here's what I can do. I can offer you an opportunity. I can offer you to work together with me. Here's a vision of our company. You can co-brand over here, et cetera, et cetera. And then I looked at my wife. She goes, that's the one. Are you sure? That's the one. Like, I learned to trust the discernment of my wife. As much as I may not like it, I was like, babe, but this guy's paying me 50 grand right now. Are you sure? This other company's going to give me a 140% contract. Are you sure? Company's going to give me, whatever. Are you sure? Patrick offered me nothing but mentorship, guidance, a vision, co-branding, and just looking in PBD's eyes to know this man was going somewhere. The other ones, I kind of felt like, oh, they're in it because they want me to do something they don't want to do. Patrick was willing to lead me. Everybody else was looking to ride me.
Interesting. There's a few things I want to unpack there a little bit.
For sure.
So tell me about discernment of your wife, because I'm sitting here, that's resonating with me because that's what I'm learning. She is not always right, but it's 99% is pretty good, right? She's usually on the heartbeat of the situation, even though
sometimes I look at the discernment with my wife like it's with relationships. My natural personality and disposition is I naturally like you. I naturally like everybody until you give me a reason not to like you. I give you trust until you give me a reason not to trust. Right? I'm gonna give you some rope until you tell me not to give you so much rope. I don't give you management unless you tell me to micromanage you. Right? So I'm gracious when it comes to that because I expect you to do your part. I'll do my part. But my wife says, babe, I'm not so sure if you trust that person so much. I'm not so sure you give that person that much rope. I'm so sure. And then I take it as you don't trust my judgment.
Yeah, you trust my leadership.
Right. You don't trust me?
Yeah.
Instead of taking it as potential counsel. So I learned to say, well, what do you mean? Because I got to make sure, is it meant from a jealous standpoint? Like I'm jealously taking away because this is taken away from us or taken away from the kids or taken away from our finance or taken away from, right? And that's initially the way I take it. But I started like taking a side eye and like, tell me more. Next thing you know, had I not been for listening to my wife's judgment and discernment, certain people would be in my life that were just leeches. But I felt I was obligated to them. And once I removed that relationship, removed the unnecessary obligation of the feeling of obligation, and I realized she called it what it was. They were just leeching on me. Wow. And I felt I was obligated to them. People that would come and propose certain things to me, or certain people that want to align with me. My wife, I pass it through the wife filter.
That's
right?
good.
Say, babe, so I've learned to say, hey, babe, how do you feel about this person? Really? I didn't see that. Wow. You saw that aspect from him? I didn't see that aspect from him. And then I go back to their person and I'm asking questions. And oh, my wife was right.
How long did it take for you to learn that skill?
5 years, 3 years, 5 years, somewhere in there. 3 years initially, 5 years to fully trust her.
Interesting.
We've been married now 7, 8. And even then, I'm still wrestling with that.
Okay.
I'd say I'm 90, 95% there, but the 50 to 80 has been already a drastic difference. Maybe, I don't know why my knuckle, because there's still, at the end of the day, I still feel that, hey, it's still my call. It's still my judgment. I still got to make the decision. And sometimes we fight about it and I tell her, hey, babe, listen, it's my call. All right? I'm making the call here. Well, I don't know. Hey, it's on me. Okay?
Yeah.
It's on me. Fine. And fair enough, because she's also an alpha. You know, she's also a very alpha. She was a single mom. She was a softball player coming out of high school. She was a D1 athlete. You know, we just got done inducting into her high school Hall of Fame.
Awesome.
So I'm coming to this thing and they think it's me getting into Hall of Fame. I'm like, no, who did you play? I said, no, I just happened to marry, a woman who played here. Her name was Sheena. I'm her husband.
Yeah. You're not the linebacker from
No.
Most of your growth, would you say, business-wise, has been in the last, 5 years? 7?
I'd say the last 7 years.
7 years?
The last 7 years, we accomplished more in 7 years with our alignment and mentorship with Patrick, Bet David, than my first 14 practically on my own and just getting coaching and consulting.
Which is also the same time you kind of got married.
Correct.
And so there's a proverb that says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing.
That's right.
And receives favor from the Lord. To me, it sounds like you experienced that.
Amen to that.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. And listen, man, I think every man will go through a phase of playing the field, and not to say that it's right, but I think that's what you naturally will find yourself doing in junior high and in high school, definitely in the military, playing the field. So if you're not equipped with relationship training, with, wisdom training in terms of people and folks that you meet older in life, you're going to fall into that trap of trying to find you, because in the process of you finding yourself, you're trying to find the people that you like hanging around associating with, because you're also trying to find yourself. And so ever since I've dedicated myself to one woman, one wife, my life has gotten so much simpler. The things I worried about when I was single, like who you skipping out on, who you cheating on, and all that dumb stuff that not only she did, but also I did. By the way, I'm talking about my wife. I'm talking about your girlfriend in general, right? Because you're worried about that too. Sure. Like, am I willing to commit to this girl because who's she calling when we get into an argument? Those type of games. I haven't had to worry about that last 8 years.
That's good.
Yeah.
Some guys don't think they could ever get married, right? But you found it to be a good thing. Because
I think it had not been for my connection back to faith, and realized, what our Savior did, what Jesus did in terms of, he married the church. The church is his bride, right? It wasn't other things. It was one, right? And solely thing. And then back in Proverbs, I'm like, well, Jesus, what about your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, Solomon? He had, 600-700 wives and 300-400 concubines.
Yeah.
Help me factor that out, right? But then again, it goes back to Proverbs. He who finds a wife finds a good thing.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because God told him before that, your kings shouldn't multiply horses, multiply gold for themselves, and multiply wives. And then he ended up doing he went against what God had said.
That's right.
And every time we
do that. And that was his downfall.
That's your downfall.
That was a downfall.
Yeah.
As a man, I think we only have so much attention. And if the attention isn't on your calling, your purpose, and the execution of that calling and purpose, and then you got enough time for your family and your wife. You don't have time for messing around and playing around. And I think people that play around, it's like, how many times have you seen an insurance guy go from company? Now, I get 2 or 3 companies, but 10 companies, and saying, okay, it's the insurance companies that don't support me's fault. No, bro, it's your fault.
Gotcha.
So, consider this. I was at other companies where my commission rate was 130, 140% contract.
Sure.
But how come I make more money at a company's only paid me 75%, right? Versus companies pay me 140%. It's not necessarily the contract. It's what you do with the contract and the system and the process of how you evolve and grow in that contract, in that arrangement.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's kind of transition here. What is one of the funniest or craziest stories you have from when your kids were babies or toddlers, like that you can remember?
Okay, well, the twins. Listen, I grew up Filipino, but Filipino dad, disciplined dad, beat your ass dad. And I'm not talking about King James Version either. I'm talking about freaking straight rectum.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Beat your behind. And it was kind of different for me with the twins.
Girls.
The girls,
yeah.
Right? And like, they weren't listening. They're just acting a fool. I remember grabbing a belt. She said, oh yeah, you want to act up? You want to act up? And I've already felt bad to even bring out the belt. You want to act up? Act up. I took the belt. I hit it on the bed. In the bed, like, boom, kind of like vibrate, boom. And then, so did the younger of the twins. She reaches over her sister's legs. Don't hurt my sister. I just threw the belt away. I said, how am I supposed to discipline my twins? I don't know, man.
That's too
I don't know.
cute.
Yeah.
Oh,
don't hurt my sister. Ruben, my oldest son, he got the belt a couple times, not frequently, but I remember one time he skipped out on me, and he's, he wanted to sneak out with his friends,
yeah,
right, and he came back, and it was, it's kind of like, oh, now you're disobeying your father, you're coming against me, issues, but I learned that I learned through that process, I learned how to say, who are you to judge? You're the same way. That's God's way of paying you back. Go ahead, keep my friend. It's, let me kind of give you back what you put out into the world too, and see how you deal with that. Now my son, I'm so proud of this kid. He's 27 years old. He's trained mixed martial arts. He's selling memberships at 24 Hour Fitness. He's in the gym. He's in the fitness industry, getting his certifications. He's getting his life together. Couldn't be more happy with him. The twins, one's licensed in the insurance business. The other one's licensed with esthetician, helping her get their business started. So, so it's great to see them from where they were growing up. My son, I told him it's either you be disciplined or you're going to get strong. And so early on, I don't want to jack my kids up with the belt. So I said, listen, kid, you're going to do push-ups and sit-ups until I tell you to stop. You're going to do push-ups and sit-ups until I get tired. Right? So you're either going to be disciplined or you're going to be strong.
So this is some of your military Marine training. So that's interesting. I flew down here. I did sit by a sergeant major who's retiring.
Nice.
In the Marines. And yeah, anyways, you got me thinking here. So you implemented some things for discipline.
Yeah.
How did you handle discipline and rewards? The structure. And you're still in it, right? You have a 3-year-old. So
yeah.
Is it the youngest boy or girl?
The youngest is a boy, 3, Jordan. Okay. Yeah, he's 3. But the currency in our house is personal growth.
Yeah.
Reading. So we got a bunch of books in the house. Involvement. Mm-hmm. Are you involved in sports? Are you involved in some extracurricular activity? Because that's extra compensation. You get good grades. Hey, that's what you're expected to do. You get excellent grades. Okay. Now you're on. You want some favors? No problem. You want money? You got to read books though, outside of your just education. So we got a bunch of books. I want them reading about biographies. I want them reading about stories. Crack open the Bible. I got my son right now. He wants a bank account. So I said, great. Read this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad for Teens. He's 12, right? Read this book, and you read the book, $5. Written report, book report, 1 page, $10. Verbal presentation, $25. So you tell me what you want. So the higher the difficulty, I exponentially want to reward them. If they're willing to invest more time into keeping a report to get the things that they want to do, knock yourself out. Whatever you're doing, if you play video games, you play sports, that you lead somehow, some way. How does that monetarily benefit down the road? Mm-hmm. Have that aspect. If I'm playing video games, how do I make money playing video games? If I'm playing sports, how do I make money playing sports? Somehow, some way, you got to find a way to monetize it.
Now, did you do this with the older kids, or is this something you learned from way back then? Yeah,
so the kids, that's been always their incentive. Your currencies are great. So if you want to go to college, no problem. I'll help you out with college, but you got to have good grades, because your good grades is going to help us with a better, FAFSA application, which brings down our expected family contribution, because more student aid is coming your way.
Sure.
So, but none of the 3 kids, bro. None of the 3 kids. I said, Poppy, should I go to college? None of the 3 older kids want to go to college.
But you were open to them doing it.
Sure.
You were supportive.
Yeah, very, very much so.
You weren't just, oh no, you got to be insurance or you got to be a business guy.
Yeah, I never asked them to get involved in the insurance business. Never asked them. It's something they wanted to do. I want them to knock on the door.
That's good. I feel like I've been hearing from some fathers, and I actually got to ask this to Tucker Max. This guy rose to fame and got all that he wanted, and now he's finding himself. And anyways, but it was, how with what you've learned, what are you trying to instill in your kids now, based on, because we've all gone through the ups and downs. His interesting story, but so with you, what are the main things like that you want them to walk away with, like, because you're instilling, I can tell you're trying to get them to educate themselves in books.
That's right.
What's like another thing that you want for them?
Well, first and foremost, you got to love God. Yeah. You got to love God with all your strength, hope, might, everything, because that will lead them to your faith. God's got a plan for you, man. And my job as your dad is kind of coach you and consult you through that journey. I've been there, done that, guys, and trusted me to be your dad. And my first job with you, and in terms of relationship, is I'm your dad first, friend second. My friends are friends with their parents. Well, this is not the way this runs in this neighborhood, or it runs in this neighborhood, but not in this home. But in this home, I'm called to be your father first, your friend second. So my job is to guide you, coach you, lead you, and that doesn't necessarily mean I'm always telling you what's wrong. My job is to father you through certain things. And so if you don't have that relationship with not just myself, but you don't have that relationship with God in life, a lot of your relationships here on earth is going to fall through. So you have to have that relationship strong. The second area is you want to be able to make your own money. The moment you depend on sales, and how you make your own money, is got to learn sales. Because if you learn sales, you'll never be unemployed. You learn how to sell yourself. You learn how to sell yourself into a job. You'll learn how to sell a sales job. It may not be a commission job, but you can stick yourself out differently from every other resume that wants an administrative position. Sure. Because you learn how to sell yourself. Yeah. Right? That's good. So for example, we're hiring somebody, she's coming in next Tuesday. She straight up just sold herself. Like, hey, listen, this is why you want to hire me. And I'm willing to work for X amount of months for free. What? Let me show you what I can do. Let me prove to you what I can do. Now that's sales. Interesting. And that's confidence. God bless her. Right? Yeah. The third thing I tell them is you have to have the right associations around you. You have to have wise counsel around you. Good character is corrupted by bad company. And you're going to have a lot of good decisions in your life or a lot of bad decisions in your life by solely associations. So I hope and pray that you have the right friends that's in your ear.
That's good. Did you always have that mentality where that's what you did? You sought wise counsel? Because I'm thinking me growing up in my 20s, dude, I kind of knew everything and I was just gung-ho. And a lot of times we don't ask for help. Like, guys struggle with that. So are you saying you just are bent, you have a natural bent to seek wise counsel?
I think I did, because when I was in the Marine Corps, they had this thing called meritorious promotion. Meritorious corporal, meritorious sergeant, because I didn't want to wait around for time in service promotions. For example, if you just stayed in the military, just stayed in the Marine Corps, time in service, you'll naturally get promoted. Or they had something called meritorious promotion, where you take charge and say, hey, I want to volunteer. I want to compete against that Marine. I want to be the best Marine out of every company, every platoon. I want to be the best Marine, and put me up for a meritorious promotion where the sergeant majors, they say, okay, this guy, this Marine, he's the meritorious sergeant of all the different units. They were competing for this. So I did that twice, meritorious corporal, meritorious sergeant, because I want to take control of my own financial future. I want to take control of my own promotion. That I didn't realize I was wired for sales.
Or entrepreneurship.
Really. For sure. Yeah. So when I got involved in those aspects, and I got involved in business, the stuff I did to prepare for those boards, stuff I did prepare for those presentations. It's entrepreneurship. That's sales.
Yeah, that's your destiny.
That's it.
You're walking in it back then. So that's awesome.
And I was asking for Marines' help. Like the Marines that I was part of my unit, they weren't the best example that I found in the access to Marines I had access to. Sure. So I respected my direct staff sergeants and gunnery sergeants, but I knew that gunnery sergeant in that other unit was better at drill. I knew that gunnery sergeant was a former drill instructor. I know this Marine over there was a former marksmanship instructor. So I'd go to these different Marines, say, hey, listen, hey, Gunnery Sergeant so-and-so, I'm from Gunnery Sergeant so-and-so platoon, but I'm going for my meritorious board. Can you mentor me? Can I run with you at lunch? Can you help me with drill? And these guys said, no problem. Be here, X amount of time, and for 30 minutes, I'll help you out. And that's what I did.
Yeah, you sought mentorship. You saw the value in being like the best guys.
Yeah, without conscious knowing I was doing
just doing it. You're wired that way.
Yeah, exactly. Because the way I figured it is, if I got to run with you, I'm not a miler. I'm a sprinter. Right? And I need to know what it is like to run an 18-minute 3 miles, a 6-minute pace. I never ran it. So next thing I'm taking off for lunch. I'm like, bro, why are you sprinting? This is the pace to run a 6-minute mile. Sheesh, okay, I got some work to do.
6 minutes of sprinting?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah.
So finance is kind of, you're geared, obviously, you're destined for entrepreneurship and success. Actually, the Bible even says that, he gives his people the power to create wealth.
Deuteronomy 8:18, yes, right.
And so you're walking in that.
Well, praise the Lord. I mean, if there was confirmation, by the way, the Bible can be used just like the internet for one or two ways. You can find things in there to confirm your faith or to deny it. You can find excuses or you can find reasons by looking in the Bible. I just chose to look at the Bible as ways to create reasons for me to pursue the God-given dreams.
That's good. I like that. So if you had to start all over again, right, from scratch, and we dropped you off in, say, Washington. That's where I'm at. What's Matt Sapaula going to do for finances, right?
Yeah.
What would be that plan for a year to 6 years?
So like if I wasn't in the insurance industry,
it's who you are today with the knowledge you had today.
Yeah.
And what would you go do? And let's say you can't do insurance.
I can't do insurance.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'd find something in there in that state, and I'd find what everybody's going through. What's the biggest problem that's going on in that city, in that state? Whether it's rural, urban, what I'm naturally, I think I learned something from you today. You talking the difference between passion and proficiency.
Yeah.
Right. So I'd find out what I was proficient at. If I couldn't do insurance, find out what I like to do in that in Washington. And from what I know about Washington, it's very outdoorsy. Right. I find out what's the most profitable industry, because I like money. Because I like to live in certain neighborhoods. I like to eat certain foods. I like to experience certain things, and that takes money, not because money is a status thing, but I want access to things that are out there. And so I find the most profitable industry, and I find the most biggest problems of that industry, and I find solutions to fix that, and I make sure everybody knows that I do it.
And I'd imagine you would probably see someone doing it really good based on what you've already said.
That's right.
And you would probably go learn from that.
That's right. No exactly. Yeah.
Since I've followed you, sometimes I see you dressed in like some really like stuff that stands out. So I'm transitioning here into fashion.
Okay.
Do you think there is some importance to it? I don't know. Where does it land on what it's important or not?
Yeah.
Or what do you think for men?
I think for men in general, not to say that it's right, but people always judge a book by its cover. I mean, how many times I go on Netflix and I'm not going to watch that. I'm not going to watch that. Oh, this looks interesting.
Just on the thumbnail.
Just on a thumbnail.
Yeah.
And so, listen, you want to dress the part, you want to be the part, I'm not saying that you got to be in a 3-piece suit all the time, but you got to look presentable. If you're going to go to the gym, wear some decent gym gear, don't wear, tattered and, unless it's designed that way, unless you buy the Rocks stuff, it's just it's the design way.
It's hundreds of dollars at it, comes with the holes in it. Right? Looks like you work.
Right, exactly.
I got you.
So, truth be told, this Rolls Royce I own, big pain in the you-know-what. It is. It's a big pain in the you-know-what. I mean, I love driving this thing. It's a dangerous car, by the way. You know what's dangerous about that Rolls Royce?
No,
so damn comfortable. I'm just, I'll wake up, get a long night, a long day, right? 15, 20-minute ride home. You're so damn comfortable in that Rolls Royce. It's just a beautiful ride. Strong. It's a big, powerful, strong couch, when I'm driving this thing home. But, you get the nice exotics, you enjoy the best things in life, but it's meant to attract, and so if you can dress the part, look the part, you can attract the part, and then people can find out what you're really all about.
That's good. I started this podcast like when I heard about like those 4 F's: faith, family, finances, and fitness. The point is, like, I would say men need to work in all of those 4 areas every single day. Like, educate yourself, do something right with your family, do something towards your finances. You need to get educated.
Yep.
You need to make money, but then know what to do with money once you made it. fitness, I have been the person like where I played collegiate soccer. I've been super fit, but then I've also gotten the dad bod after like 5 kids. And I was like, can't believe how big I am. And, right now I'm 40 pounds lighter than the first of the year this year.
That's awesome.
Right?
You look fit.
Because I didn't keep up on it and maintain it.
Yeah.
But you don't seem like you're wavering like that. So what are you doing to stay consistent with your fitness?
Yeah. By the way, 4 years ago, you should look at some of the pictures I had 4 years ago.
Okay.
Because I have the weird body type, and ladies hate it when I say this, but I have those weird body type. My wife, she like detests it every time I say this. I've got one of those weird body types that if I don't work out, if I don't eat right, I'll lose 20 pounds like that. And I'll be skinny fat.
Wow.
I'll be skinny fat.
Okay.
Right. So, I'm light. I'm lighter, but I don't look like I'm in shape. I'm skinny fat. Right. And so, for me, the way I looked at my future, like I'm pushing 50. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that grandpa walks in. I'm like, come on, kids, let's go. Right. I don't want to be the grandpa that kind of crawls in, I want to bounce my grandkids on my lap. I want to wrestle with them. That's why I told Milton, my attorney, I said, listen, Milton, I'm about to have another kid, and I don't want to, not run after my kid or have to crawl with my kid because I can't be flexible with my ankles and my knees.
Sure.
Get my flexibility back in 2017, 2018, brother. I couldn't even jump on a 6-inch platform. It was bad. I left the military with 2 detached, 2 torn patella tendons leaving the military, 40% tear in both of them. I had a L4, L5 stenosis, freaking Filipino. That means I got gout, right? Mm-hmm. So I had to pay attention to diet and exercise. It's been 2 years since I've taken any gout medication. I haven't had a gout flare up. I paid attention to diet, paid attention to exercise. What gets me energy is going to the gym. I'm not trying to be 50-year-old bodybuilder master, but no, I just want to make sure that I have enough energy to sustain me in following my passion and chasing my passion. Make sure I'm fit enough to where my wife is still attracted to me. Make sure my kids, I challenge them enough where I'm inspiring my kids too as well. So that's where I wrap my fitness area in. And I want to make sure that I'm a vessel that God can bless. I want to make sure that the purpose that He's bestowed upon my life I can still fulfill, because I got the energy, disposition, and financial and physical capability to do so.
Sure. Kind of glad you brought that up. Like, I was challenged by somebody. Was like, do you think God really designed you so that like once you hit like 60, 65, you're supposed to have diabetes, be overweight, like just dealing with, all these medication and just like, is that really the path that you want to go on? And sometimes our decision-making,
it's a great point,
day to day is leading us towards that. So I guess that's what I was trying to dig into. Like, so what are you doing day to day? You said diet and exercise, but like what in particular? Because I mean, you look lean, you look strong, like a man should look. Right. And I think most men would need to be strong, right? To their level, right?
I think if you look at yourself in the mirror, you want to be that, I'm looking good. I'm strong. I feel there's confidence. There's the enthusiasm that you have through life. And when somebody broke down the word enthusiasm to me one point. It was Gerard McClellan. I was doing TV in Chicago. He said, Matt, I love your energy. You've got enthusiasm based on what you do. I think it's because you're taking care of your body, you're taking care of your life. Things are going in your life that's going right. Things go wrong in your life, but you know how to reverse those things because of your enthusiasm. The God sense, not the good sense, the God sense, right? And so I think when we put ourselves in a position where you look good, you feel good. You feel good, you do good. And Deion Sanders says, if you do good, it pays good.
That's good.
And that's all good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's exactly the point. Like, you can operate to your highest level as a family man, right? As a husband and a dad, right? If you're fit in your business, you can operate at a high level, right? And deal with stress and have an avenue to deal with stress, right?
Right.
Or there's probably even more benefits in that. But so anyways, I just see how these all really work together. And then like that bonus one of fashion, I think that is important. So
I've always said, man, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
That's good.
Your attitude towards one area of life should also be the same attitude you have in multiple areas of your life. And I think if you're doing business plan for 2023, I think you're doing business planning to improve your life in the next 6 months, next 12 months, next 5 years, 10 years. You got to figure out what matters to you the most. If you give your honest self an honest assessment of what matters to you the most, and you design your life that way, and I think at the top of that list is your finances. How are you as a provider? How do you feel good as a man that's your natural disposition, is to be a provider? Bring home the daggone bacon.
Yeah.
Do you feel good about that? Right? And for some guys, well, my wife makes more money than me. Awesome. But are you still bringing home the bacon? Are you leaning on her? So the natural, call me traditional, whatever. But I don't know, man. If my wife is more financially contributing to the household than I am, that can ride for a minute. But I think over time, a man's demeanor starts to erode, and I think sometimes when you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're not contributing as much, or you're not providing as much. And not to say that she's got to make less money than you, but I think you got to do your part.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing your part, you're leaning on her. And let's say she does have a business. She does have a career that for some reason is paying her a whole lot more money than you. Well, the question you got to ask yourself, are you doing your part? One of the interesting characters that we ran into earlier this year was Layla Ali, Muhammad Ali's daughter.
Wow.
And she's married to Curtis, I think it's Conway. Right, he used to be a wide receiver for the Chicago Bears.
Okay.
The guy's a stud.
Yeah.
Right, but he's doing his part in spite of. Could you imagine marrying the daughter of the great? I'm a bad man, right? And the responsibility you have marrying the daughter of the greatest boxer in the history of boxing, one of the greatest men, one of the greatest activists out there. Imagine having that responsibility to marry her. And you got to step up as a man.
Yeah.
You got to do your part as a man, and he's done that.
That's great. Yeah. Do you think it's just something in? Not the brotherhood of man, but of men. But do you think men should hold each other accountable to be more than they are?
I think so, and I think it's easy for men to go back into their man cave. Mm-hmm. You talk about David's mighty men.
Yeah.
Right. David's mighty men. David's mighty men. Mighty men. It wasn't mighty man. It's mighty men, and I think men individually are mighty, but together. Imagine what that exponential factor is when men got it together. Listen, my life was saved because a mighty man who's attached to mighty men invited me to a men's breakfast on a Saturday morning. And he read about Rudy Ortiz. He read the Bible. I've never heard the Bible be read in the stories I've it told the way I heard it told. And at that point, I'm like, this is something different about this church. There's something different about this men's group. Because to me, to be invited to a men's breakfast on a Saturday morning at 8 a.m., what are you talking about? I'm still rolling around hungover on a Saturday morning. You want me to come to a men's breakfast with men? Yeah. When I did give it a shot, he knocked it out the park. And since then, I was like, let me learn more about this church. Let me learn more about this faith. Let me learn more about this God.
That's good, Matt.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much it, what we got time for. So I really appreciate your willingness to share.
Yeah.
And so I just want to encourage people, just be working in every day in those aspects, in those areas of your life, in faith, family, finances, and fitness. And maybe a little bit of fashion. So
yeah, and have fun. Have fun doing it the whole way through, man. It's fun having this conversation with you, man. Keep it up.
There you go. The 6th F is fun. All right.